For each question we asked, he answered very willingly and without hesitation, even the ones about his childhood.
What was your childhood kind of like?
Okay, so if y'all know where Cherry Avenue is in Charlottesville, I grew up in Cherry Avenue.
I used to live there.
Okay, we weren't rich, but we didn't know we were poor. Okay, so I walked to school every morning. We didn't have bus service. You could ride the bus if you wanted to pay the city bus, but I didn't do that. I walked down the railroad tracks to school. And I walked down every morning early because I had gymnastics practice early before school, and then at Lane, and then they called it Lane then, it wasn't Charlottesville High. It was in the Albemarle County office building where it was. But luckily I lived near the railroad tracks, so I could just walk down the railroad tracks. At that time, they had homeless people that lived on the railroad tracks, if you know what I mean. So you just kind of avoid them, but back then we did. Today we try to help them out a little bit, don't we? I guess my childhood was normal. I played outside. I didn't have any electronics. My parents expected me to be home when the street lights came on at 9 o'clock or whatever. That street light came home, I had to come home. But otherwise, they kicked us out of the house. Most of the time, they didn't want us under their feet. My mom had 6 kids, and she's busy, very busy. So that's what my childhood was kind of like. I played sports. It kept me out of trouble. I played football at Lane. We never lost a game. 55 game winning streak. I don't know if you ever heard of the streak at Lane or Charlottesville High. Undefeated for 5 years in football. We're state champions. And that's not a good training because you need to learn how to lose. When you go to Vietnam and lose a lot of your brothers and lose a lot of battles and things, always winning is not so good. I learned that. But yeah, I had a good childhood. I was happy. Like I said, I think it was just an average childhood. We integrated during the 1959, and I went to high school in '60. It was integrated, and I thought my black friends were really cool. So at that time, I had guys on the football team with me, Roland and Ronald Woodfolk, you may have heard of them. They were excellent. All these guys were very smart, excellent students, the girls too, excellent students, and I think we assimilated pretty good because they were our teammates. We played football together, and we formed bonds that last to this day. They both live in D.C. and I see them. But it was not as integrated as it is today. I think it's great. My family has been integrated, I guess, blended, since my daughter's married black guys in college, and now I have great grandchildren that are mixed. So, you know, I think our country gets its strength through our diversity, different ways of look. We all look at things different. A lot of people say we're so divided. Well, guess what? We've always been divided, but when it comes to the tough, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Americans are tough, and we are smart, and we learn. You guys are inspiring me because y'all ask so many questions and y'all right, and I think our future is bright too. But that's my childhood.
When he told us about the temperature in Vietnam, we thought it was pretty crazy how people had to do a 13-month tour in temperatures of up to and more than 100 degrees every day.
They also had to go through harsh, hot nights and sometimes without any sleep at all.
Man, it's hot here. It was 130 degrees on the tarmac in Da Nang when I got off that air-conditioned commercial jet. And I was a replacement trooper, had no idea where I was going, so I transitioned for about a day, and they said, you're going to be acclimatized and we're going to send you to your unit. So I learned Vietnamese before I went to Vietnam. I went to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. And so I was supposed to be a scout, sniper, and linguist when I went there, but 0311 was the guys who were 0311s were riflemen, was what they needed because they were losing a lot of riflemen. So guess what? They didn't care about my MOS. They just sent me as a rifleman. So I was started walking point on operations, and I was just a low man on the totem pole, brand new guy they called us. nobody wanted to be around you because, you know, you didn't know what you were doing. So you learned from the school of hard knocks. If you survived your first month or two, you could probably survive most of the 13-month tour, unless you got unlucky. But it took me, I talked to the villagers probably for about 4 months. I was talking to all the villagers, and finally the captain saw me talking to the villagers, and he said, "Wow, you speak this language?" I said, "Yes, sir. I told you that first day I was in Vietnam. That, you know, that was supposed to be my MOS." And he said, "Well, we're going to put you in with the 52nd ARVN." So they sent me over for about 6 weeks. I was with a ARVN unit, that all Vietnamese unit, 52nd ARVNs. And I liaison. I went on one night combat ambush and one daytime combat patrol each day. And I had to make sure, I had a big map, and I had to make sure the Marines working in the same areas as ARVNs didn't run into each other. So we'd plot out the different ambushes and things so they didn't run into each other. That was my job. I didn't like that job too much. I lost a lot of weight. I didn't really like Nookmam, which is a fish sauce that they put on everything. And so I lost about 50 pounds. I was 200 pounds when I went over. I was a football player. Had a big neck and looked kind of weird. But I got real skinny over there.
When he told us how the Vietnamese reacted to that event, we thought it was amazing. And when he told us how Congress cut off all aid to the Vietnamese people, and they lasted 2 more years after that, we thought that was incredible.
The Tet Offensive, you may have heard of the Tet Offensive of 1968. We had a ceasefire in Vietnam. And we were taught, well, you got to respect the Vietnamese people, you know, be real quiet and try to be, you know, kind of tone it down around them, because this is their a special time for them. It's their New Year. So guess what? As soon we did that, and we allowed them all in the cities and stuff, they infiltrated in, and then on the 31st of January of 1968, all of a sudden they picked up their weapons, they had them hidden, and they took over the cities, and they actually massacred 40,000 Vietnamese people that were working with the Americans. They shot them. That family that I'm talking about, that young lady, that beautiful young lady, her whole family was killed along with her in Da Nang. They did it in all the cities, and they thought if they did that, Le Duan, the leader of the North Vietnam Communists, said if we do that, then the rest of the Vietnamese people will turn against the Americans and with us. That did not happen. The Vietnamese ARVNs weren't very good soldiers until that point, but when that happened, they realized what they were fighting for, their freedom. And they turned on them, they kicked them out of all the cities, and they were a force to be reckoned with from then on until 1970. 70, our Congress voted to cut off the aid to them. And they lasted 2 more years against the communists without any aid, just from the stuff that was left over. When they ran out of ammunition and stuff, that was it. So we turned our back on the Vietnamese people in Vietnam, unfortunately. It's all political, as you know. Everything's political, it seems. Sometimes we need to use a little common sense, but I'm not a proponent of war. I think there's better ways to solve problems. They were at war for many, many years before we got there, and the people, all they knew was war, and how they could be so happy. And they wrote, I got to live with them, they wrote poetry about love and things. How does somebody think about love and poetry when they're at war for that many years? So I had a lot of respect for the Vietnamese people, and I still do. They're very, very bright people.
When he came back home, he was not praised and welcomed home. Instead, he was criticized and told to get out.
So they're very smart people, and I really respect the Vietnamese people. But like I said, one thing I did not respect was the guerrilla warfare. They used kids for human shields and things like that. You know, a Marine's not going to shoot a kid. You know, all we do is we share our food with the kid. We love kids. So we got kind of a bad rap when we got back, because everybody said, well, y'all are baby killers. And if anything, we love the orphans and try to take care of them. But war makes a lot of orphans. So that's one reason why I think we can do a lot better. If we learn from Vietnam, I'm glad y'all are learning. Because if we don't learn from it, look what happens. We get into more wars. We could have studied Vietnam right off the bat and learned a whole lot from it, and I think we'd have less problems today. We could get along. No, Vietnam is now turned in, their economy is totally a capitalist. We were fighting, it was called the domino theory. We were fighting against communism. We were trying to bottle communism up and stop it. Because each time they call it the domino theory, knock one country over and then another country would go communist, another country would go communist. We were trying to keep capitalism, which has its merits. But the communism that they were components of kept the people poor, and they didn't have much reason to go out and be ambitious and work. So I guess it was called the domino theory. I just learned 50 years later that, hey, guess what? Domino theory worked because in Vietnam, we bottled up the communists for 10 years. They did not spread communism to Malaysia, to Singapore, to Hong Kong, to Taiwan. All the Southeast Asia basin is still not communist. So it actually worked. But we paid a terrible price, 58,000 lives in Vietnam. We lost more Marines in Vietnam than we did in World War II. It was heavy. Like I said, I guess the bottom line is we can do a lot better. We can solve problems a lot better and get along a lot better than in war. It's ugly. Nothing glorious about it. I came back. I had a sniper rifle in Vietnam, but I didn't hunt since I used to hunt before I went to Vietnam. I've never hunted since. I didn't. Those things I learned in Vietnam, I tried to be honest with you. I tried to drown them out with alcohol for a little while when I got back, until I met my wife and got straightened out. We had children, and I decided I didn't want to run over somebody drinking and driving. But a lot of people try to bury their memories and self-medicate with alcohol or drugs. Fortunately, I never did drugs, but I did drink a lot of alcohol there for a while. Fortunately, I survived that too. My wife had a lot to do with it.
That's pretty cool. How did you feel coming back to America?
I came back to America, quite honestly, anybody in the military was spit on and cussed at and actually beat up around UVA. If you went up there, they would jump you. They thought you were in the military, and you weren't welcome home. They thought we were the problem with the war. We were drafted and sent over there. We could have gone to Canada or something. My parents both. My dad fought in World War II. He was an aviator, and my grandparents went in war. All my uncles were in the service. It just wasn't something I was going to do, run from. When my country called me, I was going to go. So, yeah, I guess that my accomplishment was surviving that 13 months in Vietnam. When I came home, I didn't really want people to know that I was in Vietnam, so I didn't talk about Vietnam for 30 years, not even to my wife. I would not discuss it. Like I said, I was drinking right much when I came home. But I didn't talk about it. And I started talking about Vietnam in late 60s, late 90s, I think, 30 years later. And they asked me to speak at the Vietnam Wall. And I came up there as a speaker. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. I had to face my demons, and so it was a healing process. That's why I call the Vietnam Memorial in Charlottesville, which I'm president of, we call it the Hill That Heals. It's the oldest Vietnam memorial in the country. It's right there at McIntyre. I don't know if you see it at night. You see it's pretty lit up. But we got plaques for 28 young men that we lost in Vietnam. Like I said, we lost probably one or two from Iraq or Afghanistan, which is a terrible thing. But can you imagine a small town losing that many people, mostly draftees? I don't think y'all can probably relate to that. hopefully you never have to. I did go about going back to school and get my degree and go ahead and start a business. So I moved on, luckily. My wife, it was kind of a roller coaster. She kept me on keel, and she still does that. It still creeps up on you sometimes. But yeah, I'm a survivor. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
All right, appreciate y'all. Y'all's interest in Vietnam. We learned something from it, and we'll have a better future in our country. We got a country that's worth keeping. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but you know, we're all perfecting our union. That's That's why we get a lot of opinions, and we come together and we vote on things, and always vote, because that's what we fight for, so we can vote. And that way we can hopefully continue to perfect our union, treat people. We're a nation of immigrants, you know. We have people from everywhere, and that's our strength, I think. I think America's going to survive too. I'm optimistic with the future I see. You guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, the thing I learned probably is leadership. Because if you're a Vietnamese interpreter and you're a sniper and you're a rifleman, none of those training relates to any job you can get in America. You come home and you say, I don't know what I'm going to do. So what I did was I decided to go to community college and learn management. I said, I've been managing people, you know, I've been a squad leader and a fire team leader. So I've been managing people for 13 months, or 2 years in the Marine Corps, and I got 4 more years of inactive Marine Corps. But I decided I'd go back to school, use a GI Bill, which is a good thing. You do earn the ability to go back to school and have your school mostly paid for. Still had to work a couple part-time jobs, but what I did was I started my own company, steel business. I put up buildings like this, much larger. When I got out of business, the building we're in right now, I built this with materials I had left over from my business. But I built lots of commercial buildings, firehouses, rescue squads, and churches for 35 years. So, but I learned leadership skills from the military. I attribute that was the biggest thing I took away from the military.
Yeah.
I survived 13 months of hell. That's what I accomplished. I survived. I was a survivor. I came back.
Yeah.
When people